Am I supposed to be able to hear you?
Not yet, Jim. We'll be starting soon, though.
Okay, because I just want to make sure the thing is working. It actually is nice seeing all of you. You may not want, I may not have germs, but you may not want them.
Yeah, 'cause it's a
All right, so we're gonna start. Thank you everyone for coming. My name is Leo Jimenez and I am the chair of this committee, the Committee of Action and Advocacy. I'm joined by my fellow committee members and board members, and we'll go around the room with introductions. But before we start, I want to give a special shout out and congratulations to Carmen Paulino, who's now the vice chair of the committee. Carmen is now official vice chair. She'll be helping us run the meeting smoothly, deal with the agency, and help you guys out to make our community safer. So I guess you can start the introduction.
Hi, everyone. My name is Carmen Paulino, and I'm the vice chair of the Traffic and Transportation Committee. Happy to be here tonight.
Robert Cruz. James Bosley, member of this committee, member of the community board, also member of the Council on the Aging.
Hi, I'm Mary Anderson. I'm on this committee and I'm also chair of the Committee for Concerns of the Aging on CB 12.
I'm Jody Herson, and also on Health and the Environment.
And we have a couple of our committee members online. Jim Berlin, who's feeling a little sick. Jim, if you mind introducing yourself.
Hi, I'm Jim Berlin. I'm on the Land Use Committee as well and the board parliamentarian. And since I might be contagious, I think you are perfectly happy with where I am. But I get to see and talk and vote, so that's good.
And I also want to recognize our second vice chair who has joined our meeting, Tanisha Grant.
Hey y'all, just here to support, and I'm nosy.
Thank you, Tanisha. So before we get started, and we're gonna kind of flip the agenda right a bit, just want to put something out there. We, on this side, we do this as volunteer work. So I know oftentimes we get emails, calls, and we try our best to respond on a timely basis. But oftentimes we also have our own lives, we have work. So just want to put that out there. I know I receive emails all the time. Carmen will be helping me dissect through a few of them, and the committee does a pretty good job at responding when I'm not able to, but just want to put that out there. That being said, I also ask the public members and our committee members, which you guys are pretty good, and anybody attending our meetings to treat each other with respect. Again, we're here on a volunteer basis. We want to make sure we advocate for you guys. We want to make sure we have your back. It's a lot of things that go on in our backyard, but we want to have your support, but your respect as well. So I ask that anybody who comes to present at our meetings, we treat them with the same amount of respect. Remember, everybody works for someone. Nobody makes the final decisions. That's what we're all here to. We're collectively and collaborative. Right? So thank you again for coming, and we'll move on.
Just one more housekeeping thing.
Yes.
We just want to make sure that everyone who's here is accounted for. So if you can just please always remember to sign in. I know a lot of people of you come often, so you may forget, but just make sure that you're signing in. That would be really helpful.
And if James,
Thank
if
you.
you can pass the agenda on the flip side, and anybody, we're gonna have a public session today. We do things a little different. We try to, as best as we can, have a conversation with our public attendees. Not a lot of committees do that, but we have an open kind of forum. Today, we're gonna do things a little different. We just have a lot on our agenda, so we're gonna just relegate everything to a public session. If you have a comment or want to say anything, that will be toward the end of the presentations. If you want to comment something, or at the end of our meeting, we'll allow for that time as well. Just to kind of move on the agenda and time.
Did you want this?
If you can just pass one around, and if you do want to say something, I know you guys, you'll be right up front, but if anybody else wants to say anything or has a comment, feel free to write your name down. We'll be collecting that so that we can use that at the end. And then I have the ones that are online. I have the ones online here on paper so that we can account for them. All right, with that being said, do we have a motion to adopt the agenda? Motion by Carmen, seconded by Robin.
Let me point out my raised hand.
Yes, I'm sorry, Jim, I'm not seeing it.
I may be wrong, but it doesn't appear from what the screen I'm seeing. It says it's live, which is fine, but it doesn't say it's being recorded. So you might want to check on that. I mean, it may just be my software that's not telling me, but I don't see that it says it's being recorded. So how about that?
Jim, you see, that's why we pay you the big bucks.
Yeah.
He's not paid. And just want to give a shout out to Jamila Sandoval from Councilmember De La Rosa's office, who has joined us as well. Okay, so we have some guests. As you guys know, at the board, annually, We are participating in the co-naming of streets. You submit an application, then it comes to the board. We discuss it at the committee level, and then we vote to pass it as a resolution to honor or commemorate someone who has had impact in our community. So if you guys want to stand up and introduce yourself. And again, we're just listening to them now. They'll be coming again in April, but it's just so that we can have an idea of what's going on for the request in the near future. Yes, hi.
Hi, thank you.
And you could just state your name for the meeting minutes for the record.
Sure, my name is Roy Koshi.
And I'm Angela Fernandez.
So the street co-naming that we're proposing is for Donetta Riley. So I'm her spouse, and Donetta passed away in March of last year, 2024.
My condolences.
Thank you. And so the reason that we want to name the street after her is that she had a massive, massive impact on the community up here in Washington Heights. We want to specifically name the street 185th Street between Port Washington and Pinehurst because she taught at the Hebrew Tabernacle as well as the Hudson Gardens. So that's a perfect location, and it is right next to the playground there. And that's also Donetta enriched the lives of many, many children throughout many years that she was the director of Music Together up in these locations here in Washington Heights and Inwood. And then she also did a lot of face painting balloon parties and art parties. And she also donated her time, her arts, and her skills and crafts to the Harvest Festival and the Spring and the High Seas various events. But here's the thing. Here's why beyond me and my own bias or our bias, a lot of the correspondence that I received after she passed away, and even when she was alive, were a lot of families and a lot of children, a lot of parents talking about how she changed their lives, about how she taught their children to come out of their shell. She imbued a love of art and singing in their children and families, and they still pursue these pursuits even as they grow to become adults. So she's somebody, there's a quote, I just wrote this quote down from the Friends of 187 wrote a tribute online, and the quote that they said was, she devoted her life and career to the creative soul of children. And yeah, I mean, whenever I walk around in the neighborhood, still people come up to me and talk to me about this, about how she impacted their families' lives. So it's something that it's not so much like I just did this fun job and I went home and just kind of forgot about it. It's something that really changed everyone's lives. Do I have time to ask a couple questions about the process? Or
Let's connect online. It's lengthy, so we'll connect offline. I'll get your email. I believe Kathy forwarded me some information
Yep, I
as
can
well.
connect with.
Yeah,
okay.
we'll have,
Yeah.
it's an ongoing conversation, but we'll discuss.
So we're just here to present that we are starting the process of getting the signatures and devising and creating the application, completing the application, and everything that's required. So I just wanted to come here in person to let you know.
No, we appreciate it. And clearly she had impact if she's still receiving letters a year after passing. So we're excited, and we will entertain the conversation in April. We'll connect again, and let's push it through. Let's see what we can do for you guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Does anybody have any questions for them or save it for April?
I just, I know Roy from theater company, done some work with us in the past. And he's a very upstanding guy himself, so I don't know, I'm pulling for him, but just want to say that.
Thank you, James. All right. Yes, go ahead.
We also have a council level, so I'll have to give you my cards.
Yes.
Thank you, Jamil. All right, so we'll move on. We do have, we'll start with presentations. So we have a presentation on behalf of the NYC DDC, the installation of non-standard ped ramps project. And we have the RE, the resident engineer, Paula Castillo. Can just give me a second, I'll promote you, Paula. Well, I think Paula's already on that list. Where's she? Oh, where is she? You see the name of it?
Paula signed in under Andrew Klimble. Her link wasn't working, so there's two Andrew Klimbles, but you could see Paula.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah, I
Okay,
was
so
trying to change the name. They didn't let me do it. Let me try.
no worries, Paula.
How
So
are you?
We'll start in a second. Let me just introduce, we have a committee member that joined us, Bruce Robertson.
All right, like,
Bruce, you're never late. Party doesn't start
I
without you.
hit traffic.
So, and I also want to recognize OC Caminero, a board member that has joined us as well. Hi, OC.
Hi.
All right, Paula, show is yours.
Hi, good night, everyone. Thank you for this invitation. We have with us also Andrew Klimbo. He's going to be the project manager from Freestanding Construction. I'm Paula Castillo, resident engineer with Entech Engineering, and we're going to be assisting in the construction of the project, being point communication with the different agencies and the contractor, and trying to ensure that everything is going to be in compliance with the design drawings and following all the city agencies protocols. And we have also in our team Bonnie Atien. She's a community CCL. She has worked before in other different projects, and she's going to be doing the presentation of our project. So Bonnie, you are connected? Bonnie Tang? Yes.
Yep, I'm here.
Perfect. All right, so she's going to be presenting everyone in regards to the project that we're going to be conducting.
I'm gonna try to share my screen right now. Hold on. Can you see my screen right now?
Yes.
Okay, great. I'm gonna hit slideshow then. Cool. So thank you for having us tonight. My name is Bonnie. I'm the CCL, as Paula mentioned, for the project. In partnership with DOT and DDC, we'll be installing non-standard pedestrian ramps in your neighborhood. This is general information about the overall project. It covers various intersections in Manhattan, Queens, and Bronx, but tonight we'll be talking about those in your neighborhood in CB12. So scope of work generally includes new ADA pedestrian ramps, sidewalks, curbs, catch basins, crosswalk markings, sewer, manhole, traffic signals, and fire hydrant removal and installations. The general work hours for this will be 7 to 6, Monday to Friday. It'll be 9 to 2 near schools, and there'll be no weekend hours at this time. And these are some of the locations within CB12. So you have Wadsworth Avenue and 178th, the northeast and northwest corners of West 164th and Fort Washington Avenue, the southeast corner of West 160th and St. Nicholas Avenue, and the northwest, southeast, and southwest corners of Dongan Place and Arden Street. This is a general timeline. Each intersection will have different start dates as shown here, but the final paving will be on the same date on June 5th, 2025. So these are some of the streets, and then the next slide will have the other streets. So you see all the dates are very different besides the last paving. Here are some existing pictures, Wadsworth Avenue and West 178th. In this corner here, you'll have new pedestrian ramps, sidewalk, and curbs on northwest and northeast corners. You'll have a new standard catch basin at the northwest corner, and there will be new crosswalk paving markings and stop bars in both. And then here you have Fort Washington Avenue and West 164th. There will be work on pedestrian ramps, sidewalk, curbs on northwest, southwest, and northeast corners. There'll be new catch basins at the southwest and northeast corners. There'll be a traffic signal work at intersections. We will also install accessible pedestrian signals as well as street lighting work at this corner too. There'll be a new catch basin chute connection for southwest and northeast corners, and there'll be a new sewer manhole at Fort Washington Avenue. In addition, there'll be new crosswalk paving markings, stop bars, as well as the new street and traffic signs here. And this is the picture of the other southeast corner right here that's existing. And then we're here at West 160th Street and St. Nicholas Avenue. There'll also be pedestrian ramps here, sidewalk and curbs, and then a new catch basin at the southeast corner specifically. New traffic signals here too, new basin chutes, and just like the other sidewalks we talked about earlier, there'll be new markings and stop bars. And the most work will be done to Arden Street and Dongan Place. You know, in addition to everything mentioned previously, it'll be a fire hydrant removal here, as shown in this corner, in the southeast corner. And there'll be a new sewer manhole, there'll be new catch basins, and lots of new signs. There'll be a new one-way, and the stop sign will be replaced too to make it brighter and more visible for folks. Also the one-way sign too. And this is an example of what the pedestrian ramp will look like after construction. So what to expect? So DDC is committed to maintaining a worksite that is safe and clean. Pedestrian access will be maintained during construction. Resident engineer Apollo will monitor operations and work within noise code regulations. There'll be sidewalk and dock access. It might be temporarily restricted. It depends on the area, but we'll definitely communicate with you about that. As well as parking, it might be restricted too. We'll make it safe for folks, pedestrians to walk by, and, we'll post construction notices ahead of time, 72 hours in advance, for folks to be aware of and know what's going on. And if there's any questions, feel free to reach out, and we'll be happy to work with you about this. This is an example of community advisory posts. It'll be also in other languages as needed too in the neighborhood. And here's my contact information in case you want to reach out about this project. I'll be communicating with you guys about this. And thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you, Bonnie and Paula. We appreciate it. I'm actually a CCR as well in the Bronx. So this is job I do daily with DDC. Yeah, so we have a couple questions from the committee members coming.
How were these streets selected for the rehabilitation? Why these streets in particular?
Andrew, you want to answer that, or?
I don't know. Karenza looks like he has an appropriate answer.
I'll jump in.
First.
Hi, my name is
Thank you,
Lorenzo Wilkerson. I'm from the Department of Design and Construction. I'm the director of design for this project. So all the locations were selected by DOT. Basically, there was a lawsuit that was charged against the city for making the city not accessible. So DOT has formulated a 30-year plan, and they're going through and selecting the most important corners that do not have ramps. And they're going through, and we're systematically trying to install pedestrian ramps at different locations. So this was one of the projects that was selected. There's several corners that are within this project, but these are the ones that are within your neighborhood, so that we're in urgent need of to be brought up to a good state of repair for accessibility.
Thank you. You have a final question?
I did. What makes them urgent need?
In some of the pictures, have you noticed there were no pedestrian ramps there, so you couldn't get off the sidewalk, and so that's what is one of the priorities for DOT. They're trying to tackle all the locations in which there is no access. So an individual who has maybe a disability, who maybe has low vision, they want to be able to allow them to have the ability to get on and off the sidewalk.
Thank you.
Question? Oh, what makes them non-standard?
So non-standard means that there's some complexity. We have to move things. So if you notice in one of the pictures that we had up there, there was a traffic signal pole that was right in the middle of where the pedestrian ramps should be. And so that pole has to move. So that means it's non-standard. A standard corner means that we can go in there with a contractor and we can just install the ramps. Nothing has to move. It's simple. But non-standard means that we have to move the catch basin. We may have to move the traffic signal pole. We may have to move the hydrant so that we can put in 2 ADA compliant ramps.
Thank you.
James?
So if you see the corner here on the right, on the southeast corner, that there is no ramp there, and
Right.
you have a trash can there, and you have a pole there. So we have to move that pole, and then we can't just move the pole. We have to do some design with regard to it because we have to make sure that the intersection is Vision Zero compliant. So it has to be enough light so that vehicles can see the pedestrians that are crossing in all the directions. So there's a lot of little things that come into play. And also we have to take into consideration the utilities. Con Ed has a lot of things running underneath the sidewalk and in the middle of the roadway that you don't see with your naked eye. But when we start to move things around, they become impacted. So we have to coordinate that so everything can fit in its right place.
Okay, great. Thank you.
James?
Yeah, our community district consists of 2 neighborhoods, Washington Heights, and very few people know this, also Inwood. Will you be installing these ramps further uptown as well?
So for this project, the locations that are specified are the ones that we're working on for this project. We have several projects that we're working on, but today we're only talking about this project with these locations.
All right, let me go on to our committee member, Alain Jim.
Thank you. I just, you use a technical term that I'm not familiar with, although I probably see these things all the time. What is a stop bar?
So the stop bar is, if you notice the picture on the left-hand side, next to the big pickup truck right there, see that dark white line that's kind of running horizontal to the page? That's the stop bar. That's where vehicles are supposed to stop their, they're supposed to stop at before they enter into the intersection or where they're at a red light.
Uh-huh. Thank you.
OC?
Yeah, thank you. I have 2 questions. One, you mentioned fire hydrant that is going away, going to be removed. I'm assuming you are going to install a new fire hydrant in nearby location. Could you please indicate exactly where it's going to be? And my second question is, I'm assuming that those are just a selected few and there are more to come throughout our district. Could you share the timeline for the upcoming additional upcoming and additional work that's going to happen after those few that got selected?
Sure. So for your first question, the hydrant is going to be relocated. So we never remove hydrants and just take them away. So we're going to relocate it just a few feet further down. So the district manager should have received some drawings, and it actually shows the location of where the existing hydrant is and where it's going to be moved to. We don't have that shown in the presentation, but it's shown in our design drawings. But it's usually just a couple feet away, either to the right or to the left from where we're trying to install the ramp. With
Okay.
regard to the other locations, you'd probably have to reach out to your DOT liaison. Usually each community board has a DOT representative, or you can reach out to your DOT borough. What's the title? There's a borough.
Leo, do you have a rep? Like, do we have a rep, or maybe the office can do that?
Yes, we can reach out to Lyle. I have the drawings forwarded from Ebenezer for the relocation of those hydrants. As for the future projects, we can reach out to Lyle and see what they have in the works in the next year or so.
Yeah, because there's a whole series that the city is going through, and so whenever we're doing linear reconstruction projects, we always upgrade the ramps. But then we do have specific projects just for ped ramps, and we're working all throughout the city just to make sure that every community is being touched, so that no one doesn't feel like they're being shafted or getting the short end of the stick. We're trying to make sure everyone is covered, but it is going to be a long process. It's a 30-year program, so it's not something that we're going to see, overnight where everything is done.
Understood.
So thank you for your patience.
Then, so we had yes.
will the puddles be taken care of by the catch basins? And how are you going to handle catch basins covered with leaves and snow? Where you have these ramps, they are prime locations for puddling, which is also an ADA non-compliant issue. Can you, maybe if you go back to the first slide showing where you're going to put the crosswalk indicator that you haven't actually named, that will show the puddling. It was Washington Street or something for
Lonnie,
Washington.
if you go to the first set of pictures right above that one. Yeah, if you click on that one.
Yeah, that one's good, sure.
Yeah, so
Notice
that's the
the
one I was
puddling.
gonna focus in on. So with all the corners that we are working on, we are putting in drainage structures. So we're putting in catch basins to be able to collect all those water. So for a corner to be considered ADA compliant, we have to eliminate ponding. So the designers have made sure that there is positive drainage towards the new catch basins so that there won't be any ponding in front of the new ramps.
Have you ever heard of continuous sidewalks?
I'm sorry, we're not doing the dialogue. It's just a question. Okay, we'll discuss. If you have any questions, forward it to me and I'll make sure to just with them. As for the cleaning of the catch basins, that's more DOT. They just design and.
I wrote down Lyle Blackman.
Yeah.
I'll be asking him.
Yeah. Yes, Allegra. I mean, we'll move on after that. Go ahead.
Why weren't raised crosswalks or other measures to enhance ADA considered at this corner? And when I looked it up, it looked like this particular thing covers an intersection of Broadway and 9th Avenue on the northeast corner where there's also no pedestrian ramp. And so why isn't that part of their presentation?
So DDC, and I just for the basis, DDC does the design work. So all they do is they come and manage the project. DOT is the one that puts out the project, what they want, and DDC just hires a team to, hey, manage the project, make sure that contractor gets things done on board. That's, I'm not sure what that is.
Meaning
Go ahead, Rob.
Meaning DOT, what it does is this corner,
Yes.
that's what I need.
Yes, DOT is the one that chooses the locations. They'll figure out if you need a raised crosswalk, and then DDC just handles it. So correct me if I'm wrong, Corenzo. Corenzo might not be able to answer the question why that location specifically.
So there's a PDF with this document ID when you put the agenda online, and I looked it up, and that's where we found.
Yes.
That this intersection should be part of the presentation. That's why we're asking.
Okay. So Corenzo.
Like, we're not asking like to make it up. It's like it was in the original PDF.
For raised crosswalk?
No, not about the raised crosswalk, just about 9th Avenue and
Broadway.
Oh, the
Broadway.
location
Right.
specifically.
Yeah.
So
we're just curious why are not in this presentation. Was the scope of the project reduced, or we're just
Yeah,
trying to
so
understand.
what they're saying is there was a location on Broadway and 9th Avenue. Does it have a specific street on it?
They have a map with red dots on it.
You
It's
guys have
published by
a,
the DOT.
yeah, you guys have,
That a pedestrian crosswalk, I know, that's my target, Randy Card.
no, you guys, and the project online, project ID, when they searched it up, there's a location that's omitted from your presentation. They're wondering if it was design, if it was omitted from the project prior to you guys starting. And that's on 9th Avenue and Broadway.
Yeah, so this project, when we originally started a few years ago, it was larger. And then the project was whittled down to the locations that we currently have. And these are the locations that are shown on the slide that are the ones that are within your community board. So there were other locations, those will be moved to another project. And we had to do that for some financial constraints. But these are the ones that we're going to be working on right here, right now. And those other ones are going to be worked on in another project. With regard to your other question, with raised crosswalks, for this type of project, with a pedestrian ramp project, we try to look at installing the standard configurations of pedestrian ramps that DOT has in its H1011 document that you can find on its website. We will be installing raised crosswalks, but that's another project that we'll be doing with regard to that. And that'll be throughout the whole 5 boroughs. But for this, we were able to install those typical designs that are found in H1011 to provide accessibility at these corners that are listed.
Thank you. And I like it. We'll follow up with Lyle, see what happened to that location and if there's any plans. If there's any plans for a project in the near future. Okay, Corenzo, Bonnie, Paul, and team, thank you guys for joining us. We don't need to come up with Jamil, I'm sorry. We have one more question from the council member of the Rose's office.
You can hear me. You said 72 hours in advance that the construction is going to start happening. Is it just a notice? Do you guys go door to door? Because there's especially for Duggan Place, there's a church there that has an elementary school. So I wanted to know if they're gonna get a notice personally at the door, or is it just on the street? And then my other question is, what is the time of the construction happening? Since that's a residential area. I didn't hear it.
You can bring back up the other slide, which you had the times.
Great, hold on. Share it again. All right. So it'll be May 22nd is the ideal start time.
On the day.
7 a.m.
What time are you guys gonna start construction?
7 to 6. The permit allows from 7 to 6. Around schools is 9 to 2. So the permit most likely at 7 in the morning. And as for the outreach, they usually go to other businesses, residents, schools. They give them advance notification. I'm sure she's done her outreach prior to the work. But they will go with 72-hour and 24-hour notices prior to the actual work starting.
Thank you.
Right. Again, Paula, Bonnie, and Corenzo, thank you guys for joining us. They just wanted to come and give us information. The project's set to start real soon. We don't have to pass a resolution. We appreciate you guys. We hope to see the results in the next few months, and we invite you back for updates.
Okay, not a problem. Thanks for the invitation. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Barsamedi.
Thanks.
Okay, so moving the agenda along, MTA, they had a small update regarding the elevator. Should be in service real soon, I believe in the next week or so.
Which elevator is that?
The 177th and for Washington.
Oh, yes, yes.
Base train station. So that was the good news. He had another community board to jump onto, so he couldn't join us tonight. But Alberto, it's great. He's constant communication with us and with the council member's office. So he's not on, but thank you, Alberto, wherever you are. We're gonna move on to DOT. This is the portion I'm sure a lot of us have been waiting for. We're gonna allow them to present again. I asked, they just work for DOT. They're just coming with updates. We'll have an ongoing discussion. We're gonna keep it at the committee level with the community board members online. But we're gonna allow for questions, not a dialogue. If you have a question or concern, we'll allow it during the public session. All right, so Jennifer and team, welcome. Hey, Kyle, how are you? Kyle, always my pleasure.
Hello.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Jennifer Santa Ynez, the Manhattan Deputy Borough Commissioner at the New York City Department of Transportation. Thank you again to CB12 for adding us to the agenda tonight. I'm joined today by Lyle Blackwood, our Northern Manhattan and CB12 Borough Planner, and Kyle Gorman and Daisy Gonzalez, who are representing our Public Realm team and who will be sharing screen and running through our presentation tonight. We're coming here with some updates on the Audubon Avenue Open Street and to talk about our vision for 2025. And we do look forward to hearing the committee's feedback as well as the attendees' feedback. Happy to answer any questions following the presentation.
Thank you, Jennifer. Good evening, everyone. I'm Kyle Gorman from the Public Realm team. I'm going to share my screen now and pull up the presentation. So, like Jennifer mentioned, Daisy and myself are going to be giving a quick update on the Audubon Avenue Open Street. Essentially, we're going to recap all that happened in 2024, also give an overview of the survey feedback that we facilitated last year, and then also talk about what the 2025 vision and next steps will be. So just a little bit of background on the team that Daisy and I are part of. We're on the public realm team at the city's DOT. First and foremost, our job is pedestrians and public space. That's the core part of the work that we do on behalf of the agency. That's everything from open streets to redesigning intersections to make them safer for pedestrians, doing corridor initiatives, creating premier public spaces, and then within those public spaces, doing programming, activations, concessions, and of course, keeping them well maintained. And we're also the team at DOT that's responsible for the pedestrian mobility plan, which creates a citywide pedestrian plan for how the city should develop its infrastructure in and around pedestrianization, which is the primary mode of transportation here in New York City. But at the core of all that we do is community partnership and community engagement. And that's why we're here tonight, of course, to share a little bit about all the work that we've done, as well as to hear your comment, feedback, and ideas about the open street. So just to do some table setting, we're talking about Audubon Avenue on between 165th and 166th Street. It is the southernmost block, or the first block of the corridor, right at the intersection of St. Nicholas and Audubon and 165th near McKenna Square, the park space. It's shown here towards the center of the screen in orange. As many of you are well aware, DOT initially launched the open streets on Audubon Avenue as a pilot 24/7 closure. Essentially, it operates very similarly to a pedestrian plaza, but through our open streets program, we are allowed to do 24/7 open streets through the full closure type of open street. And when we designated this, it allowed us to deliver a lot of different types of public realm amenities and programming activations that we'll highlight today. But the space since last July has been on a daily basis maintained and operated by our public space equity program partner, the Horticultural Society of New York, also known as the Horts. And they're in the space every day doing setup and breakdown of all the tables, chairs, umbrellas, and other amenities. They're also there 2 times daily, doing daily sweeping, cleaning, and pressure washing as needed. And they maintain all of the planters and other horticultural elements in the space. And they do plant-based programming in addition to a lot of the programming that Daisy's going to highlight in just a few seconds. The last thing I will mention is that Audubon Avenue is a priority investment area for the city's DOT. Some of you might be familiar with the fact that we are legislated to maintain a streets plan here in New York City. So DOT every few years releases a new version of the streets plan. And within that plan, it specifies specific geographies within the city that we should prioritize investment in. And Audubon Avenue indeed is one of those corridors. So I'm going to turn it now to Daisy to highlight all of the excellent programming and events that we've been planning in the space. So Daisy, take it away.
Thanks, Kyle. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for having us. My name is Daisy Gonzalez. I'm the Assistant Director of Public Realm Programming, and I'm very excited to share some of our recap of 2024 programming events. These events were all free for the community and were organized in collaboration with local stakeholders to serve the community's diverse populations, and each event was thoughtfully designed to meet the community's needs with an intentional focus on inclusivity and accessibility. So this photo was for our kickoff event, our first event of Car-Free Earth Day in April, with performances and activations based on climate change and sustainability with one of our programming partners, Kids Fest. Next. Our next is our OpenStreet Implementation Day. We launched the OpenStreet implementation in July with our partners from the Hort, and which was hosted SYEP, Summer Youth Employment Program students, to learn our plant-based programming and horticultural care with our partner, the Hort. Next. Also, in continuation with the collaboration with the Hort, we installed some fun pollinators project, and this is pollinators that host bees. Is very worth mentioning that this attracts bees that do not stink, and they're safe for the environment and for everyone in the community. So we have some great feedback on that. Next. We also collaborated with the Horde on some fun plant-based programming that included some activities with the kids, and we collaborated with some local stakeholders in some of the educational activities with the Horde. And this is an ongoing collaboration with the Horde that is all season. Throughout the summer, we did a temporary tape art installation. And this was done by Cookie, which is one of our successful Cookie is a programming partner of DOT. Next. We brought the circus in August with performances and interactive activities. These activities were for all ages and abilities. We had circus acts and performance, and they were interacted for everyone in the community. We hosted 10 events in the summer with our programming partner Street Lab in the summer, and including one of our most liked activities called Oasis, which is pop-up water activities. In some cases, the kids were able to get wet, and they were interacting with some of the equipment from Street Lab as part of the activation of Oasis. And with the collaboration with Street Lab, we also did some educational, interactional activities for all ages and abilities during the summer of 2024. Next. We did an event in celebration of our Hispanic Heritage Month with our programming partner, Salsa Storage, which consisted of some salsa dance classes and interactive, immersive activities with the communities. These interactions were for everyone of all ages, seniors, kids, all abilities were interacting in celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month in September. We also partnered with the New York Presbyterian, and we hosted a health education outreach to promote healthy lifestyle and connect with the community and provided some health resources. That was done in September. In addition to that, we brought 4 music performance in events in October to encourage the investment in the local economy and participation from local stakeholders. We would like to highlight that these activations were very interactive, and everyone from the community was able to interact with this musical performance. And you see there's some seniors and kids were enjoying the music series during the month of October. Next. This is an event with a collaboration with Manhattan District Attorney Office called Shine the Light, and it was to raise awareness on domestic violence. This was a walk through Washington Heights and ended up in Audubon with a big celebration to raise awareness, and this was done in October as well, 2024. Next. And our one of the most successful event in October was Trick or Treat with Halloween themed activities for everyone in collaboration with one of our programming partners, Kids Fest. This is to allow kids to safely trick or treat in the street and giving them a space to do so, and promotes safety for everyone in the community during Halloween. I'll pass it to Kyle, who's gonna talk to us a little bit more about the community engagement.
Thank you, Daisy. So one of the other activations that we did towards the tail end of 2024 was working with the community to do an asphalt art mural installation. So Street Lab, one of the programming partners that Daisy had mentioned, essentially hosted a series of different types of community engagement events in the open street to get input and ideas for a future mural in this space. Street Lab has this really interesting interactive programming cart that's called Imagine. It's an engagement station that has a lot of different types of prompts and creative activities for members of the community to sort of just get those creative juices flowing, share ideas about things that feel really special to them about living in Washington Heights or visiting Washington Heights, and the types of things that they would like to see in the art mural. So there was tons of ideas and comments, and you can see in the first two pictures at the top of the screen, people were able to sort of just take a bunch of markers and crayons and stencils and everything else and just draw a bunch of different shapes and ideas and items. There were these note cards also that Street Lab had created, which had a few prompts that allowed people to sort of think a little bit more about the different themes that they liked included in the mural. And then the artist Mildor synthesized all of the feedback and ideas that the community had shared and adapted it into this creative design that you can see towards the bottom of the screen. This is a digital installation that the artist created, and the idea was to turn it all into stencils, which then we worked with the community to implement on the block of Audubon where the open street was. So we had just members of the public at large from Washington Heights community who wanted to participate, a number of students from the high school, the Loop Road High School around the corner who participated, a few of the businesses on the block, and really just anyone who was walking by was able to pick up a paintbrush and help us out. And also hold down the stencils. It was a very windy day. It was a really unique community building exercise that resulted in a pretty vibrant new art installation on the block. Obviously, not many people get the opportunity to have the chance to paint on New York City streets, so it was a pretty amazing experience for all ages and abilities here on the open street. And this is a photo of the final product that was implemented. You can see there's these sort of floral installations along both curbs on the east and west side of the street. And then the former parking lane, the striped parking lane lines were creatively interpreted as swings, and some of the icons that are on the swings are the things that young people in particular called out as things that they wanted to see in the installation, and the artists worked them in, and then they ultimately got implemented. So it was really amazing to sort of take it from the idea phase to implementation here on the block. We were also able to work with the Hort to plant 3 new trees on the block. These are 3 new tree pits that had to be cut and planted. So these tree pits did not exist before. So we cut the sidewalk and put in the 3 new tree pits. We were able to plant 2 American elms and 1 ginkgo tree on the east curb of the block, right in front of where the businesses are. It went in November, so right at the tail end of the planting season. And in the years to come, we're really excited to see these trees grow big and cast shade and just deliver more greenery to this community. So the other item that we wanted to highlight today was the results of the community feedback survey. As we had mentioned back at the original community board presentation, when we launched the pilot, we wanted to conduct community feedback and outreach while we were doing the open street. So we facilitated this feedback survey for folks to share really any ideas, comments, questions, concerns, what have you, for the open street. We were able to promote this survey via signage all along Audubon Avenue and the surrounding corridors, as well as by email directly to the community board and elected officials and so on, as well as through other channels via the local stakeholders that we work with here in Washington Heights. The survey was available in both English and Spanish, and 259 individuals were able to respond to the survey over the last 6 months or so. So just getting a little bit into some of the data that was shared. This is hyper local data. The majority of the folks, approximately 80% of respondents said that they live nearby the open street. So this is everyone who really represents Washington Heights, but also folks who might work nearby. Obviously, a lot of anchor institutions for jobs, such as Columbia and the hospital and other healthcare infrastructure. Of course, Washington Heights has its own unique set of businesses that people in particular visit the neighborhood to come to. So they're coming here to visit the local businesses, of course, going to appointments like medical, going to nearby religious institutions, schools, leisure, and so on. So, we were really happy to see that this is the hyperlocal data. And then we asked folks what are types of public realm improvements they'd like to see implemented on Audubon Avenue. Should be noted before I get into the particulars that 80% of folks who took the survey did want to see some level of public realm improvement, whereas 20% did not. But amongst those 80% who did want to see things, first and foremost, folks wanted to see more greenery, more public seating, programming, pedestrian space, art, and other operational tweaks such as curb changes and loading zones and infrastructure to support the open street. So a lot of different things. And also I'm happy to say that we were able to, in the pilot phase, deliver on a lot of these wish list items that folks wanted to see. And then looking at sort of the programming and events and activities that happen in the space, we asked folks what the types of activities and uses they'd like to see here. Much like the question before, enjoying the outdoors, access to greenery and open space. Nearly a little less than 3/4 of the folks who took the survey said that. About half wanted to see more events. Exactly half wanted to see group and social activities. Given the nearby health institutions, people were also very interested in seeing health-based programming and active uses to support exercise and healthy lifestyles. And of course, lots of other things people wanted to see in the plaza too. Then we also asked folks, do you want to see this block as an open street? We obviously have already defined what that means, and 68%, so a little less than 3/4 of the folks who took the survey said that they did, yes, indeed want to see the open street, and about 32% said they did not. Of the sort of accolades and positive feedback that folks had shared, a lot of people said that they liked the access to more open space for community uses and events and programming. A lot of folks also noted the sort of immediate pedestrian benefits that came along with simplifying the intersection that's at 165th St. Nicholas and Audubon. A lot of people said that prior to the open street, there were issues with turning vehicles, whether it be coming off 165th Street or off of St. Nicholas. And then, of course, also some folks noted that there was a sort of economic development component that came along with this project. But of course, it was not all sunshine and rainbows, and people definitely had their concerns and other feedback to share. First and foremost, of course, folks noted the lack of parking in and around the area, or the issues related to parking in the area, I should say, and the parking that was removed as a result of the open streets, and additionally, the disruption to local traffic when that block of Audubon is closed, and then some concerns that are specific to this particular open street and maybe even some other nearby public spaces, just noting some quality of life concerns when it comes along to managing this open street. So the final items that we wanted to touch on was what sort of outreach and next steps are looking like. So given the success of the open street and the pretty positive response that we've heard from the community, we are looking to propose a street improvement project to formally redesign this block as a pedestrian plaza using DOT's in-house plaza toolkit, which I'll talk about in a second. But before we get there, we acknowledge that there are a number of community conversations, workshops, and outreach opportunities that have to happen between now and when we're able to come to the board with a fuller proposal. So we're proposing to host a series of workshops across the late winter and spring of 2025 to gather all the community's feedback, comments, and ideas ahead of any redesign. In addition to doing all of that outreach, our bread and butter, of course, is traffic analysis and transportation planning. So we'll be doing a lot of in-house analysis to make more informed decisions about how we are planning these projects and making recommendations about any loading zones, signal changes, and just better understanding what the wider traffic network impacts are as a result of the proposed plaza. Following all of the workshops and the internal traffic analysis that DOT will do, we will come back to this committee and maybe even the wider Community Board 12 to present a final design for everyone's feedback, comment, and ideas ahead of implementation. Assuming that all goes well with the community workshops, the traffic analysis, and the final presentation to CB12, we will then look to implement a plaza sometime in 2025. Our Plaza Toolkit is features that I think many of you are probably familiar with in your day-to-day lives as you walk and bike and even drive around New York City. But we'll be using our in-house operational SIP toolkits to implement the plaza using edge objects like planters and granite blocks, amenities such as umbrellas for shade and movable furniture, and a opportunity for a new ground treatment, whether that be a new public art installation or epoxy gravel, which is this sort of tan in-house pedestrian space color that we widely use all across New York. Many of you might already be aware, but we've worked with the MTA to permanently reroute the M2 along Amsterdam Avenue. In the past, it was following this purple route that is shown, but since last summer, it's been following this dotted green line where the bus, as it heads west on 165th Street, and now makes a right turn to head north on Amsterdam Avenue, and then a left turn to head west towards 168th and Audubon to meet up with the terminus of where the M2 is at the sort of northern part of the route. And this is where the southbound route then begins to head downtown. That did result in the bus stop at Audubon Avenue and 165th Street to be removed, and folks can now catch the bus at 165th in Amsterdam. Like I mentioned, we'll be doing a lot of analysis and observations about how sort of the wider public realm and transportation network around the open street is operating, and we'll make specific recommendations about any delivery and loading zones and making sure there's enough space for pickups and drop-offs so people are still receiving their deliveries, packages, getting access to their buildings, and so on. And then the last thing I'll mention is that we have a very special Valentine's Day event that Daisy and team have coordinated with one of our public realm partners on February 8th between 2 and 4 p.m. on the open street. Hive Public Space, which is one of our partners, like I mentioned, will be doing a love traveling art project in the open street. So everyone here and beyond is invited to spread some love in the spirit of Valentine's Day and really just continue to activate this community space. Really appreciate your time and looking forward to any of your questions or comments that you might have tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Kyle, Daisy, and Jennifer for the presentation. I'm going to defer to the committee. Mary, you have a question?
I do. The Aging Committee has been talking about the possibility of having a health fair, maybe in like May or June. And we're wondering if we can have it in Audubon Plaza.
We would be thrilled to have your health fair in Audubon Plaza. I can see a twinkle in Daisy's eye.
All right, was potentially our committee meets on the first Thursday of the month in the morning, and we're considering the possibility of having it. Like I said, either May or June. At the time that the committee meets, say maybe from like 10:30 to 12:30 or 10 to 12 or somewhere around those kind of hours, the late morning, early afternoon hours. So who would I get in touch with?
So you can have the board reach out to Jennifer, and then Jennifer can connect with myself and Daisy to get that. And Jennifer's from our Borough Commissioner's office.
I'll add it to the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else in the committee?
We have a meeting this Thursday, so we'll be discussing this. So I will bring that feedback.
Okay, let me, any of our committee members online, Jim? No?
Actually, I do have a question. Thank you.
Go ahead, Jim.
Or two. Do you have any aggregate numbers, and you may not, but it would, be something I would think you might want to do, of how many people in general over the course of, I don't know, a week, a month, use the plaza? That's one question. Another question is, recently, I think, and we're very happy that you've done this. I think you guys have made sure there's all this lovely programming at the plaza. But what would be involved that this programming remains active, for the future? Because, without people going out and looking for programming or whatever, I mean, it's very good that Mary wants to have a program there. So that's another part of the question. And then the other thing, and again, it's sort of imponderable, but does the plaza get used, for example, by families in the evenings, on warm, evenings, to hang out and enjoy themselves? Because that would be another positive aspect that the plaza could bring to the local community. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So we were able to do traffic counts last year, and those traffic counts include vehicles. So that would be the vehicles at the nearby streets. It includes bikes. So we'll have an idea of any bikes that are passing through the space, as well as pedestrians. And we have the ability to see the point where people enter into the space, where they leave, and how long they might linger for. So we're able to sort of get that it's in 15-minute increments, but we're able to sort of get those little snapshots of how many folks are using the space. And then we use that to make traffic analysis recommendations. And then, of course, sort of tell the data story when it comes to how many folks are using the space. So, yeah, in the upcoming presentation, we'll definitely have more to share on that in the spring. When it comes to programming, that's also a very important element. We agree that robust and positive programming of a space is what keeps it active and as a community amenity. We actually, on an annual basis, spend a sizable amount of money on programming all of our public spaces across the city. Right now, I'll just quickly tout, we have a contracting opportunity for anyone who might be interested in working with DOT to program these spaces and do events with the DOT through its Open Streets and Plaza program. So we're sort of trying to lay the foundation for those long-term opportunities for sustainable programming through procurement. But of course, should this become a plaza in the future, anyone from the community, like any of our plazas across the city, are able to apply for a SAPO permit and to host an event in the plaza. So that will be something that, DOT, the city itself, will continue to invest in. And of course, we'll do a lot of communications and encouragement around local stakeholders coordinating their own event. And Jim, I'm so sorry, I forgot your third question.
It was basically the other uses of the plaza when there is no programming going on, like, families in the evening and stuff like that.
Yes. So should this move forward to a plaza? Plaza is a 24/7 designation. So that is something that's around year-round, 365 days a year, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We don't necessarily always put out the furniture 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, as you can imagine. Why not? But we do generally try to keep the furniture out from sunrise to sunset. So this time of year, it's out for a little bit less while the sun isn't out as much. But in the summertime, June, July, August, it's out basically from I would say 6:37 in the morning until about 8 o'clock at night. So yeah, people in the warmer weather, so long as they're being respectful of their neighbors, of course, would be encouraged to use the space.
Thank you. I have a question. So you guys know my thought process and how I feel about the plaza. My main concern is the maintenance partner. I know that Iconos Kids is no longer a maintenance partner. And as you see recently, the district manager, Ebenezer Smith, mentioned that it took a couple of days before anybody came and shoveled the snow. So had accumulated ice, black ice, causes accidents. Are you guys looking for a maintenance partner, or is DOT gonna take care of the maintenance 24/7? And if you are looking for a new maintenance partner to help with contracting the programs, will the community board, or not even the community board, the community at large, have input in who we choose to take care of these plazas in our neighborhood? As you see in the other plazas, the Quisqueya Plaza, Plaza of the Americas, oftentimes the idea sounds beautiful. We want open spaces collectively. I love open spaces, right? Especially it was needed during the pandemic. I think it's needed now just to get people out, health reasons. But it's all beautiful until you have a partner that has no interest in our community, wants to collect the check and not care on what's going on, if there's proper programming that promotes everything you mentioned in your presentations or advocates for health. So are you guys gonna seek, or I guess put out a bid for another maintenance partners? And if so, would you allow the community board, Councilmember De La Rosa's office, Councilmember Shauna Brady's office to have some type of input in who comes into our neighborhood to run these plazas?
So I'll start first with saying that Iconos Kids was essentially never the maintenance partner. They were the applicant for the open street and let me zoom out for just 1 second, of course. We had an open streets application and a plaza application, like I explained the other day. And just for everyone else's context, those are two separate regulatory programs that DOT manages when it comes to public spaces here in the city. So Iconos Kids had both submitted a plaza application and an open streets application. In many instances across the city, we have partners who submit those applications and they can take on the full maintenance and operations and programming of those spaces. Generally speaking, that's our well-resourced business improvement districts, especially those south of 59th Street. In many other instances across the city, through our public space equity program, DOT is able to work with those applicants who apply for open streets or plazas and right-size the level of support that we offer to make sure that these public spaces are maintained to the quality that DOT expects them to, but also that they remain as vibrant community hubs. So through its own contract with the Hort, DOT has a contract with the Horticultural Society that we've had for nearly 10 years. They are doing the daily maintenance and operations in many of the spaces across the city, including actually Audubon, Quisqueya, and Plaza de las Americas, and other sites across New York. So we have to go through a formal procurement process to identify the Hort as a vendor, and that contract is a multi-year contract, and we don't have any, plans to remove them as a contractor who's maintaining this space. That being said, should, let's say in the future, this does go to become a plaza and we move forward without a local community partner like Iconos Kids, someone still could apply to the plaza program to be the partner. And for us, the partner means a lot of things, like I was sort of just trying to allude to. It can mean the full set of maintenance and operations. It can also mean that you're really just focusing on programming and advocacy. And it can be just like, you're a small grassroots organization that cares a lot about public space, but your mind be not necessarily in the weeds of turning on the lights every day. So should that happen, if someone does apply to the plaza program again, those types of applications are brought to the community board for your feedback and input.
Okay, thank you. If you can connect me to your partners at the Hort, we have some pending conversations in regards to other plazas. Just want to make sure that you guys do right by us. Right? You guys implement it. We have no problem accepting it in our communities as long as they're taken care of. Let me direct to Councilmember De La Rosa's office, Jamila. Bruce, go
I was
ahead.
gonna bring up Mike's, the reason Mike is here.
Yes.
Real quick then.
So this is alluding now to other plazas. I'm sorry, I know you guys just presented Audubon. But
Well, I
let me,
manage all the plazas uptown, so you've got the right guy.
let me have Jamila, and then we're gonna move on to Bruce and Mike's concern.
Obviously, Daisy, Kyle, and Jennifer are very familiar with me and with myself and the council member and how we feel about this process. I just want to be clear that the council member is not against open spaces and places that people can gather and enjoy fresh air, have community events. We love that. However, the council member is clearly in our last meeting that we had, but I want to say here, in opposition to this plaza due to the lack of transparency that happened in this process. We were told for a meeting through someone else that there was a meeting happening, a pre-meeting before it came to the board, and then 2 weeks later, it was implemented into the street. Obviously, we know Equinox is no longer an operator. We haven't heard any conversation about who is applying, what is that process. And I feel like due to the information that we know, there's just been a lot of lack of transparency. So we're in a position, and I just want to end it with that. They already know how we feel. We had a meeting prior to this.
Yeah, that'll be last week.
Where the council member was able to share her thoughts and a very way more information than I'm gonna stay here. But I just want to, for the record, that the council member is in opposition to this.
Thank you, Jamila, and Kyle, Jennifer, and Daisy. I'm sure you heard it. Bruce.
No, I just wanted to.
I actually, so sorry. Before we move on, I actually have a few public attendees that want to comment on this particular presentation. You do as well?
Yeah, I had a question.
On the Audubon Plaza. Okay,
Yeah,
so
Audubon Plaza.
we'll stay in the room and then we'll go online. Since I saw your hand raised first, go ahead.
Yeah, for the record, so my name is Gabriel Zainun. I'm a community member. I just wanted to ask if it's a plaza, is there gonna be a way that there could be like a small bike lane that goes through to allow for cyclist traffic? Because right now, there's just a giant gate there. As someone who bikes around, I have to do like a weird maneuver because there's like 6 inches of a gap to get through. Because otherwise, you have to just bike on the sidewalk with the pedestrians. So is there a way, if it were to become a plaza, or either way, that there could be like a small sliver that could be just for bikes to go through? Because it doesn't have quite the imprint that the cars do, and like maybe some bike.
Doesn't have the markings.
Yeah.
Infrastructure for bikes through the plaza could definitely be considered.
Allegra?
So for the open streets plan, I read that many of the volunteer NGO kind of groups that were supporting and partnering with DOT, they were on the verge of collapse because of massive delays in payments. And I know that the maintenance of these plazas is what's on the community mind, but if the people that DOT, the volunteers who had good intentions, like I don't know about this plaza, but they're not getting funded to actually do the work they're supposed to do. Only so much time that you can volunteer your time before you have to get paid. And so I was just wondering if there's an update on like how Speedy and can volunteer, largely volunteer, but NGO, like slim margin kind of groups actually expect to get paid in a timely fashion by New York City so that they don't cause so much community friction.
You guys, yeah, go ahead, Kyle.
Yeah, I'll just say that, I'll be totally transparent. New York City's procurement process is very complex, and we know that that is especially felt by smaller businesses, local nonprofits, and volunteer-run organizations. We are definitely well aware of the constraints that the city puts on those stakeholders. In this particular opportunity here, there was no funding offered to any local community partners. We have a contract with the Hort that is separate from how we offer funding to community partners. So in this instance, there thankfully was not that particular issue, but as you noted, a few of our other partners across the city have seen some delays in payment, and DOT is quickly worked to rectify those issues in most of those instances and is already starting to scope out some alternative mechanisms to get partners paid quicker and potentially even having access to greater amounts of money to do this valuable community work. And we'll have more to share about that hopefully in the coming months.
Thank you. We have one more person in the audience and we'll go to Tanisha.
This is a wonderful thing. My name is Ira Gershenhorn. I live on 104th Street, next to 103rd Open Street, shared street. The email you put out, open street at dot.nyc.com. I have about 6 questions. If I ask those 6 questions via that email, will I get a response in a few days? Particularly the flyer for February 8th, which is next weekend. How do I get that flyer? And is there,
So yeah, if you go ahead and if you email openstreets@dot.nyc.gov, Daisy and I can get you the flyers. And we'll also share with the community board too. Sorry, go ahead,
Yeah.
Daisy.
Sorry, Kyle. I also want to share that the upcoming event for Valentine's Day scheduled for this weekend coming up will be flyering this Wednesday. We'll be having physical flyers at the space for everyone to see, because some of the feedback from the community was that they would like to see some physical flyers around the neighborhood. So because some of us in the community, they don't have access to Instagram or in that media. So we would like to put physical flyers around the neighborhood so everyone in the community be aware and participate. And we'll also share that with the community board as well.
Yes, please send it to the board office. There you go, Second Vice Chair Tanisha.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for your presentation. It's always wonderful to see you come here and let us know what's going on. But my thoughts and comments, touches on further on some things that people have already said. So I live in the neighborhood and I pride myself on knowing what's going on. And I knew nothing about this. So my first question is, what's the outreach like? Because if you're not reaching, I understand that, there are buildings there, but I live a few blocks over and we don't hear anything. So outreach, I suggest you don't just put flyers in the space, but maybe go out into the neighborhood, at least 2-3 blocks over, so that maybe more people could access, all the services that you are offering. And also, I disagree with the way that it came to be. It was no community input, and that's just not okay. But I know that this is just your job, so I just got to say this for the record. And also, I would like to see. I'm gonna hold that thought. So thank you so much for coming to this presentation. And if you could just tell me, a little bit more, or if you would think about maybe, expanding your outreach a little bit, so that people in the neighborhood can really access it. And I like what Jim said about the numbers. Like, I would like to see how many people actually visited that space last summer. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, those are great suggestions. We're definitely happy to cast a wider net when we do all types of outreach for any future initiative here.
Tanisha?
Yeah, and if you guys can just give an explanation on what's your actual outreach process besides the flyering. We just want to know what steps you guys take. Do you guys connect with any other agencies or organizations in the area?
Yeah, I mean, it should be no surprise to the board that DOT as an agency has quite a number of networks, stakeholders, and connections all across New York and all across the community. So we definitely did our due diligence to work with all the sort of local stakeholders that you would probably know in the nearby community, big and small, doing as much inclusive digital and print outreach as we can, leaning, of course, as much as we possibly can on the community board and elected officials to also get the word out. We try to cast a wide a net as we possibly can, recognizing that we will not be able to always reach everyone, maybe in the best ways either, or the quickest way too. So there's definitely always more outreach to be done. And I think it's heard loud and clear that people want to see as much outreach as possible for anything here moving forward.
All right, thank you. Let me give an opportunity to some of our public members that have some comments. I'll start with Tanya Bonner. She's been waiting patiently. Tanya, the floor is yours.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, my name is Tanya Bonner. I am representing the Wahi Inwood Task Force on Noise, and I live about a block away from this pilot plaza. Ever since this pilot plaza was erected against the strong concerns from community members at your June 3rd, 2024 meeting, the foolishness we all feared immediately started. Virtually every weekend day in the summer and early fall, I was bombarded with endless outdoor concerts with amplified sound at this pilot plaza, while those who are supposed to enforce are at home in peace in the burbs or elsewhere. Some examples. On Saturday, July 27th, 2024 at around 11 p.m., a bunch of people were drinking, smoking, and using the plaza as a nightclub. I had to contact the 33rd precinct. On August 25th, 2024, there was a large event held there where the organizers admitted to not having a permit, but somehow had the codes from someone in authority over the plaza to unlock the chairs and tables. On September 7th, 2024, at around 1 a.m., I had to call the 33rd precinct again regarding a party at the plaza. This plaza should not be made permanent. Instead, DOT and our community elected officials need to hold those managing the current permanent plazas in our community accountable for their blatant misuse and abuse of these plazas, including inappropriate frequency of events with amplified audio and music, and any permits they may have been granted by the police department that stipulate event time, frames, and noise levels. The New York Times published an article on January 30th of this year, noting this community having the second highest number of noise complaints in the entire city in 2024. And they noted our task force's existence as further evidence that there is a problem. Our noise task force has always emphasized that noise is a public health issue, and we are currently partnering with Columbia University on a study on the impact of noise on sleep health in this community. And with the challenges this community will face due to the national political climate, our city agencies and elected officials should be ensuring that residents remain physically and mentally strong to meet those challenges and not constantly disrupted by unnecessary noise. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanya. DOT, I'm not sure if you want to respond.
I mean, I think, you know, we would agree with you that unprohibited uses in the plaza, especially in the early morning or late evening hours, and those without a permits are unacceptable. So we're definitely sorry that you had those experiences, but ultimately enforcement is up to the police department at the end of the day.
Will DOT have some type of communication with the local precincts to ensure that we're not causing any type of quality of life issues to our surrounding neighbors? Is there something that you guys do to ensure that there's some type of enforcement? I know you guys don't do the enforcement, but some type of partnership, it's appreciated.
I mean, of course, we work very closely with our agency partners, the fire department, police department, sanitation, and so on. So as issues are escalated to us, they are then referred to the community board, or sorry, to the police department as needed. And Tanya, I'm aware of some of the issues that you flagged tonight because you've been sharing them by email for the last few months, and I know the police department has followed up with you directly on some of those concerns.
Thank you. Let me give the opportunity to Chelsea Peralta, who's also been waiting patiently. Chelsea, your floor is yours.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we do.
Hi. Okay, so I feel like wherever statistics you guys got, I totally agree with Tanisha and Miss Tanya, I believe it was the person before me. I genuinely feel like that this plaza is not meant for what you guys want it to be. There's another park right there on 165th Street that is completely obliterated. No one has paid attention to that park, but yet you guys decide to take parking from the people that live here who are exhausted looking for parking and just decide to make it a community center that no one sits in. Besides the events that you guys make, nobody sits in there because it's dead heat. The sun is blazing right there. I don't know what was the thought process of you guys taking away our parking spots. That's not okay. Same goes for the businesses there. Since it's a closed entrance now, no one doesn't necessarily walk through there anymore because it's closed. It makes no sense. There's another park behind it too, right in front of the hospital. Again, you could have used that space as well. If you guys want community events with the children of the community, Edgecombe is right there on 165th Street. You could have used that. Why take away our parking spots? That is just completely unacceptable. The people here in the Heights, now my family is Dominican. Like, we all speak Spanish. I have not heard any one of you guys speak Spanish throughout this entire webinar. So it clearly shows that you guys are really out of reach with the community that is living here in this community. It shows to me that what is actually happening around New York City, gentrification. We, as the people that are lived here and born and raised here, deserve our space to be the way that we exactly want it to be. And I feel like you guys are just coming and changing that, and not for the better, because again, if you go to Fort Washington, there's another beautiful park down there too. One on 165th Street in front of the hospital. One right there, right next to the Audubon one that, again, right in front of the church. No one is like paying attention to that one. The cobblestones are all broken up. The seats are all old. But yet you guys are like, oh yeah, let's put asphalt and take away parking on this one little side where the bus used to be and take away people's parking spots. I don't think that's okay. I feel like the statistics that were given throughout this webinar were incorrect. I feel like the people that signed up for did the email questionnaire, I feel like was completely biased, I feel like, in a sense. I don't know how to explain myself, but it's like, I feel like the people that do actually live here, I feel like didn't input anything because I feel like they're scared at the end of the day.
Thank you, Chuck.
Okay.
Appreciate your feedback. We'll allow Cheryl Miller, give her 2 cents. Is she still on? I don't think she is. Hey, you don't see her.
Remember, I have my hand up.
Yeah, I have a list, Jen. I'm sorry.
No problem.
After I go through the public attendees, we'll go back to Jim and Osi. We'll do Brittany Robinson. Brittany, you have 2 minutes. In essence of time. Brittany, do you still want to provide some comment?
2 minutes running. Moving on.
All right, Beth Alberti. Go ahead, Beth. You can unmute, Beth. Her hand is raised.
Want another one?
Okay, her hand is down. All right, we'll go to Jim, then Osi.
2 minutes, right?
2 minutes. 2 minutes, Jim and Osi.
Thank you, Leo. 2 things. One of them is, and then they're related to one another. I think Tanya made an extremely powerful case for what I think every resident of Washington Heights, whether they're Dominican or Black or any other ethnicity, or even if they're not from this planet, we all deserve peace and quiet so we can sleep at night. And that's the bottom line. And we need assurance that that's going to happen. So I think in the case of this plaza, I'm going to suggest to our committee that either we directly reach out to the local precinct or we partner with our public safety committee to reach out to the local precinct to find out their thoughts on the advisability of this plaza. Because if this plaza is going to keep Tanya and all the other neighbors awake at night during the summer, that is totally unacceptable. Again, the bottom line, and I don't care whether businesses make money or don't make money, whether people are happy or unhappy, people who are residents of Washington Heights, every single one of us, we deserve to sleep at night in peace. That is the bottom line. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Osi?
Thank you. I feel that you know, we're getting proposal for another plaza, but not addressing the existing issues in existing plazas that put together a number of years ago. And the one that come to mind is the plaza on Dyckman between Broadway and Seaman Avenue. I don't live right there, but I live probably 10 blocks away, and I sometimes hear the noise coming from there. So the issues on that plaza was not addressed, and I don't think it's the right thing to go ahead and propose a new plaza until we address issues with previous plazas and then implement whatever solutions we have to for future plazas. So in my view, maybe Jim proposal is great to speak to the precinct, but beyond that, I don't think any plaza should be approved before there are solutions to existing problems in existing plazas in our district. Thanks.
Thank you, OG. Let me allow Cheryl Miller. We couldn't find, but we got her now. Where did she go?
No.
There you go, Cheryl.
Thank you. Yeah, I was trying to say that you didn't unmute me. That's why I couldn't speak. Yeah, I just I'm also part of the Waihi Inwood Task Force with Tanya, and I too live a block away from the plaza. And you know, this is I would just like to know who is. I know Kyle said that DOT is not responsible to enforce, but there are people that, like Tanya said, are having things going on there with no permits. And, you know, this is just totally unacceptable. People have a right to sleep. Like she said, this area up here in northern Manhattan has the most noise complaints, I think, than any other part of this city. And it's ridiculous. You know, I mean, like, I don't have a problem with having, you know, things going on there like art exhibits and things like that. But when it comes to just people coming here, using the plaza to just disturb people, I really have an issue with that. And something needs to be done. Otherwise, I don't see this plaza going forward. I oppose this plaza. I was at the meeting back in June of last year, this community board, and I spoke against it. I don't know what 62% of this area is for this open plaza. I'm not in that 62% range, I could tell you that. And I did fill out that survey, and I opposed it even in the survey. And if I heard correctly, you even have Carmen De La Rosa's now, her office is in opposition to this plaza. And this is a council member stating that they, you know, because of lack of transparency, which I agree with that, there's not really been an outreach to this community. There needs to be more of an outreach to this community, you know, in order for this thing to go forward. And that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Let me allow Diane Jackson, who's been patiently waiting as well. Diane, floor is yours.
2 minutes.
Thank you. What I had to say, I had no idea what the agenda was tonight, so I had another issue. But as I'm listening to this, and as I'm a member of this community, I live on 157th Street, and it's been well said by Ms. Bonner, Ms. Peralta, OC, that before you go forward with any more of these streets, you need to take up the concerns of the streets that are already in existence. One of the things that was in my mind too was security. How do you secure the area and the people to make sure they're safe when they're there? And how do you secure the area and the neighborhood when they're not there? Both from the noise and maybe other illegal activities. Also, as Ms. Peralta was saying, before you open up a street, what about utilizing some places that are already in existence, so they don't become underutilized, and then you're spending money in another area when that money could be used to improve the already existing areas that there are. Also, with the matter of parking, every time you do one of these open streets, you close off parking. So the people in the neighborhood can't find adequate parking. And what happens is that now that you've closed off these 15 spaces or how many spaces, now those cars are going further up looking for parking, further down looking for parking, which takes up the parking for people in the other neighborhoods in the other streets. So there are a lot of things that need to be considered before you go on with this project and before you open up any more projects. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. Okay, so we'll end it there. Again, Jennifer, Kyle, Lyle, Daisy, thank you guys. As always, it's gonna be an ongoing conversation. I think there's a lot to consider. And I kind of share the same sentiment as most people who spoke. I think we have other issues in our area that deserve priority before we add to our plate, you know? Obviously, DOT has an initiative, and as a community, we want to support these initiatives, especially when it gives opportunity for our people to have a place to assemble, but we want to make sure we do right and check these other locations that may have issues. So hopefully we can open the conversation to taking care of Quisqueya Plaza and the Plazas of las Americas before we continue this process. I know you guys have a timeline, but I'm gonna speak on behalf of us as a committee, and I know the council member shares the same, we kind of share the same voice. We want to make sure that we take a look at these other plazas, see how we can enhance them before we start or continue to implement. And before you guys leave, I'm sorry, we have Bruce and Mike who have been waiting.
Well, I just want to hear what Mike has to say.
Yes, Mike, I'm sorry about that. Mike, Mike, you can introduce yourself. The floor is yours, actually. I'll allow you to introduce yourself.
Hey, everyone, my name is Mike Fiddleson. I'm with the United Palace. I've been for 13 years. We've noticed deterioration of Plaza de las Americas for a long time. And about a week ago, I had finally sort of hit my wall with what I could deal with over there, and went around and took a bunch of photographs of the, I don't know what the technical term is, the pavers. They're not really cobblestones. No, the pavers that make up the ground.
Yeah, the pavers.
Yeah, and a lot of them had been missing, or they were sunken or whatever. And I finally said, you know what, this is dangerous. I gotta let the community board, DOT, Department's office. And lo and behold, within 24 hours, DOT had come up and filled in all of the holes that were tripping hazards. And some of these were some significant holes, right? And it's not the United Palace, but the Bravo is there. It's a big thoroughfare for folks to walk through. Fantastic. But here's the question. The entire plaza is made up of different types of pavers. The holes were filled with asphalt. So the question I have, which I've heard raised repeatedly, and thank you for continuing to raise this, I think that there is a question of how we are going to maintain our plazas and open spaces that are already there, that are where people should be congregating, which is where we've spent the money over the years to build for people to congregate. We really need to get those ship shape before we start building other things. So the question I have, the first one is, not to be answered, but just to raise. If this is a beautiful plaza that was designed with pavers to sort of have, you know, this flow and everything, and we're filling it in with asphalt, what are we doing with this space? You know, are we trying to maintain the aesthetic integrity of it, or are we just problem fixed, move on to the next one? Because I can tell you a lot more problems with the plaza, and they can't be fixed with asphalt. But I appreciate you for raising this.
Thank you for coming.
Ahead. I would love to be in a conversation with the community board, DOT going forward, and see what we could do to really turn this plaza into what I always heard being described as the gateway to Northern Manhattan, and something that everybody really wants to be proud of, but we're just not there yet.
All right, thank you, Mike, for your words. There you have it. Yeah, let's continue the conversation. Let's really focus on the other issues we have before we implement or decide as a board, as DOT, and as a community to actually move forward with the implementation of the plaza downstairs from us, downstairs.
Right, Leo, thank you for helping to moderate the Q&A following our presentation. I'm also happy to follow up with Mike about, the pavers question. If there's if there is any chance that we can do to complete what are called make safe repairs, which is what we did at Plaza de las Americas with the asphalt filling last week. That's something that our operations teams can get to if it certainly is an emergency situation. For the long-term aesthetics and look and matching of pavers, that's a longer conversation that we can have, offline. But Leo will certainly continue to stay connected with you and the board. Lila and I will keep you posted as the team takes back the feedback and works to develop our next presentation for the committee.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys. All
Thank
right.
you.
So in essence of time, Lyle, I know that you take a lot of the beating from us, man. So I appreciate you. We have a lot of offline conversations, and he's a great guy. He really, really does work close with us and with the council member's office. But Councilmember Shauna Braves. Lyle, do you have any updates? And I know we had a walkthrough recently. Jody, Bruce, James, Jim joined us, Jamila as well, to discuss certain things. We'll be discussing it the next coming months. Don't want to bring it to the table tonight. I think it's a lengthy conversation. But Laz, do you have any updates? I know that DOT recently designated a school safety zone on 9th Avenue between 218th and 219th Street. What that means is that the street goes from being 25 miles per hour or 20, I guess, since it's the school, to 15 miles per hour. So when you're driving around that corridor, those 2 blocks, you have to reduce speed to up to 15 miles per hour, correct? Lyle?
Oh, just give me 1 second. I'm trying to pull up the letter here. Yeah, it says essentially based on Sammy's law. This law that was initiated by the city. City of New York has the authority to reduce speed limits to 20 miles per hour on individual streets, 15 miles per hour next to schools, and to 10 miles per hour on the streets with additional traffic calming measures. Ideally, it's a way of helping to reduce traffic by schools and to reduce the chances of a fatality or a crash that occurs. This was installed by the new charter school on 9th Avenue by 218th and 219th Streets. And this is also something that's taking place citywide. So we just gave a notice to the community board as far as the most recent school safety zone that was installed. And any other future ones, we can definitely give you updates on as they come in.
Thank you. Yeah, 1 second. I emailed you about community board member Radaya Barnes' question about the construction near Riverside Drive. I haven't checked my email since like 3. I've been very busy.
Yeah.
We have, and then tell me if you haven't.
Yes. So, we had a conversation last week, you and I. I told you that we can send inspectors out to this location in order to, see that everything's on the up and up regarding the construction materials. Everything ideally should be as in place as it should be. An inspector did go up there today, earlier this afternoon, and at least as of today, they report back that everything as far as construction materials were placed as they should be on site. They didn't see anything in the bike lanes on 158th Street. So when our inspector went there, I think we got a report around, I guess a few hours ago, it's late afternoon. As of today, everything was as it should be. But if anytime, as I mentioned, that anybody sees anything that might be out of the ordinary, we can always send an inspector up there just to make sure that everything is on the up and up. As I mentioned before, any construction that does take place around the city does have to go through a DOT process through our Office of Construction Mitigation and Coordination. So we work with them, or that division, I should say, works with any contractors and construction companies ahead of time in order to show them where the layout should be as far as where they should place construction materials, any signage that needs to be installed temporarily in order to reroute traffic or to alert people. There is a process that does take place prior to that. And while construction or any work is going on, like I said, we can send an inspector up there, which was the case today. So like I said, as of today, everything seems to be in order and in place. But Again, if you see anything else that you might feel is out of the ordinary, you can always reach out to DOT, to me, and we can always send an inspector up there. So it's not a problem.
Okay, before we continue, we have Carmen has a question. And then we have Fred, but I'm gonna bring up something on the behalf of Peter. Peter is a community member, community resident that comes often to our meeting, and he's brought up multiple times the conversation of universal daylighting. I know that other boards have gotten behind this, and I think we're the last ones in New York City, in Manhattan at least, to support this. Is there anything in conversation with DOT to potentially implement this? Obviously, it'll be a grander conversation. I think it's a moving piece, but we would want to entertain the conversation with you.
Sure. Yeah. I know that we've had conversations with, it's a citywide program, just to reiterate again, and we've had conversations with other boards in Manhattan. We have had other conversations with other boards in North Manhattan. We haven't had a conversation with CB12, as you mentioned, but I can reach out to my colleagues to see if there are any potential locations for daylighting. If there are suggestions that the community board has for locations, you can always send them to me. Daylighting in some instances may include parking lots, depending on the location. But the ultimate goal for daylighting is to make sure that, priority intersections, which is intersections and other ones that might cause issues, are considered safe. But again, as those locations come in, I'll pass them along to you. And again, if you have any suggestions, by all means, you can send them over to me. But I'll see what is in the pipeline for CB12, if anything, and I'll get back to you. Just send me an email, Leo, and just put it on my radar, and that's what I can find out for you.
Follow up with you tomorrow.
Sure, no problem.
With the new school safety zones, is new signage being posted? Is there a speed camera? I'm just trying to figure out what happens if people, I guess, continue driving the regular speed limit. Are there speed cameras there, or is just signage?
Let me see if I can get the letter. Give me 1 second to make sure I'm giving you guys the right information. I know we sent the notice to Ebenezer a few weeks ago, just to give the board the heads up. Ideally, it can come in many different forms. Usually traffic calming measures, so if speed bumps are something that can be installed, that's something that we would do if it meets certain criteria as far as traffic speeds. Additional signage might be something that we can do if the school doesn't have, say, a school zone sign, or a sign that indicates that there's a school nearby. We can install that just for general notification. Any loading zone space that hasn't been installed, ideally for curbside access, notably for school buses, can also be installed through our school safety division. And there are other traffic calming measures, depending on the location, that might come into play, maybe curb extensions, daylighting as a possibility, that sort of thing. In this location, usually it's pretty much lane markings that have been installed to reduce speed limits. And we're also having continuing conversations with the school and the other stakeholders of the neighborhood, hopefully in order to make this area a little bit easier to manage and maneuver around. So hopefully there'll be some additional information as far as that in the coming weeks and months. But we do have conversations going on. Leo's been a part of them, where we do, we're speaking with the school also as far as ideally, being a better neighbor to the community, while working with the stakeholders in order to make sure that the entire area is safe. Yeah.
Thank you, Lau. Let me have OC. OC, you can go ahead and ask a question, then Fred will come back to you.
Okay, I don't know if it's the right time, or maybe it should be old business, but you mentioned 9th Avenue and 218th Street, assuming the conversation was regarding the MTA. And so there is already a sign there for no standing 7 a.m. to 7 p. And I feel like the conversation that we had last month, or at the general meeting, I should say, is more so to accommodate the buses, the parking for the buses. They're already parking. They took over the parking right next to the Spectrum area. So I mean, I think that the proposal to have no parking at all is actually the way I read it is more like a proposal to have parking for buses only, except that, you know, nobody is going to enforce it, so the buses will park there. So I think I was, you know, I don't remember that sign there, the Monday to Friday, 7 to 7. Is that a new sign?
I think the signs in that area were, well, okay. So there are a couple of things that have happened in that neighborhood over the past several years. I cannot recall exactly when the signage, no standing signage that you're referring to was installed north. I know exactly what you're talking about, just north of the depot. We had a meeting on site there last week, and this conversation was a part of it. But I guess just to backtrack, a couple of years ago, say about 70 years ago, and there are still members of the committee that were at this meeting, where we had a meeting at Allen Hospital to discuss the one-way conversion of 219th and 220th streets for PS 18 that was there previously. I think they just moved down to 21st and 10th. But we had the previous conversation years ago in regards to one-way conversions of those streets in order to accommodate the public schools that had been there previously. And at that time, I think we had changed the signage on 220th at least in order to no standing, I think 7 to 4 during the school days, and then gave that parking back to the community after hours. I know the MTA has made a request in order to reevaluate the signage on 9th Avenue, I believe north of 218th Street, pretty much up to 220th. The MTA's issue in that area is basically related to issues with their buses entering and exiting the depot. The charter school that's there currently, it's been there for, I think this is the second full year that it's been in existence, but the MTA's been having issues as far as buses getting in and out of that depot, and that depot is the Kingsbridge Depot, which pretty much services most, if not all, buses in the Bronx. As a result of what's going on with double and triple parking by the school, usually doing student pickup and drop off, it seems to be severely impacting bus operations for the MTA, ideally for the borough of the Bronx. So the request that the MTA made basically was to try to have that space north of the depot cleared during the day in order to facilitate buses being able to come in and out of the depot, at least northbound, coming from the north wing southbound, and to at least try to organize this street a little bit better. But as we've had, conversations pretty much tonight, talking about enforcement, we've also reached out to the 34th precinct in order to take a look at this space that much more. But that's pretty much the essence of the MTA's request. It's not something that DOT has approved as far, from this point on, but it's something that's definitely being taken into consideration. Like I said, we had a walkthrough with the community board, the school, MTA, and our school safety division, myself also last week, where we did have this conversation on site. So everyone's aware pretty much, of the challenges that are here, the positives, negatives of any changes that we would make. But again, if the board, has a resolution that they present to DOT, we will follow up basically on the board's recommendations in order to see if whatever you suggest is feasible. So I know that we had suggested that the MTA reach out to the community board in order to basically continue this conversation, just to see what you guys also thought about the feasibility of changing the signage in order to accommodate their needs. But as of now, like I said, their request is still under review. We haven't said yes or no to anything that they've suggested. But that's why we're here. So, to have this conversation. So, your input is definitely important. And, we like to hear what you have to say as far as, your thoughts on that space and whether or not you think that the MTA, should be granted that space. A lot of it's on the school as well, as far as, I don't want to put the school into the bus, but we've seen some instances where, parents, again, we know how parents are by schools, with children. But there seems to be a lot of issues with double parking, triple parking, not really using the streets as they are intended, which can be definitely lead to serious pedestrian and traffic safety hazards and issues. So there is certain criteria that we'd like to meet, but again, if the community board wants us to, think of something else, like I said, if you want to send a resolution to us, it's something that we can definitely evaluate.
Thank you, Lal. Let me allow Noemi, from our community board to chime in.
Oh, hello, guys. Thank you for all the information. I had a question in regards to the zoning for the individual streets to have a lesser mileage. How do you go about by submitting a request for that?
You can reach out to me. Emilio has my contact information. He can put you in contact with me. You can also go on the DOT website. That website is nyc.gov/DOT. There is a section, if you look in the drop-down menu, it's on the left side, where you can contact DOT. There's a drop-down menu that appears, and you can fill out a form. Once that form is submitted to DOT, that information essentially gets generated and processed to become a case for the respective division within DOT. The case gets rerouted to that division for review, and you do get a response from DOT. So there are a couple of different avenues you can use in order to get a request and an answer from us. And, we try our best, to be very responsive to any questions, concerns, or requests. So feel free to send anything out to me, or you can go through the website and we can definitely follow up with you.
Thank you so much. I
No
really
problem.
appreciate it.
No problem.
Thank you, Leo.
No worries. Bruce.
Yeah, so one of the questions we asked of the Zeta school representative was, how many cars do you have come in every day, come and go? He said, well, maybe 500, but he really didn't know. And speaking with your colleagues at DOT and MTA, they thought it would be important to know that so they can run some numbers.
Yeah.
The other, asking the same fellow if they could stagger the drop-offs in the morning and the pickoffs in the afternoon. And again, talking to your colleagues at DOT, I said, what do other schools do? And he said, well, they're more cooperative. And I'm paraphrasing than this guy seems to be. And in Queens, for example, some of the other schools, I'm not sure what's happening in Cabrini, but we had a lot of problems with them last year. They seem to have resolved a lot of it, depending upon who you speak to. So who's going to follow up with the school? Is it us or is it you?
Well, I will say this, every school is unique. This isn't a problem that's specific just to this charter school. We've had many issues with schools citywide, a lot of it in North Manhattan. The geography and the geometry of North Manhattan is just different. So things are a lot more narrow, there are a lot of peaks and valleys, especially in CB12. Every situation with every school is different. We've seen a lot more concern about charter schools because of the regulations that they have. They aren't the same as public schools. So sometimes they do create some unique situations, that we haven't seen in a neighborhood like this, that's primarily residential. So there are a few challenges that we have to go through. Again, we do the best that we can as far as at least facilitating, but we can't do it alone. We put signs up, as necessary. We've had multiple walkthroughs, not just with the Zeta charter school, but other multiple schools around the area, all throughout Northern Manhattan, not just in CB12. Every school is going to have a challenge as far as student pickup and drop off. And we go through this, this issue everywhere around the city. Again, we get it, parents, want to be that much closer to the door in order to, pick up and drop off their kids. But again, there's so much DOT can do as far as making sure that everyone is on their best behavior.
You know that, Lyle. I'm just saying in this particular case, what's the next step? Do we contact the school? Are you going to contact the school? You guys need some more data to kind of evaluate. And as I spoke to one of the MTA guys who was there that day, I said, who puts pressure on the school? And he looked at me and said, community board. So what do we have to do to get them to rethink how they're running their day-to-day, drop off and pick up in conjunction with what you guys are able to do? switching to one way, this way, that
Yeah.
way. Entering on the other side of the building, which they have doors there, they could drop off people there.
Yeah, I mean, you were there, Bruce, last week. You saw the same thing I saw. It's trust me, it's not for lack of trying as far as having continuous conversations with the school. We've had multiple conversations with MTA, with the school, with the 34th precinct. MTA is very concerned because it's still directly impacting their bus operations. We've also reached out to the electeds. Councilmember De Leris's office has been very instrumental in trying to facilitate and move things forward. Jamal was there last week also with us. So her office is well aware of what's going on here. So they're trying their best. We're trying to work with them. As far as the MTA request, that's under review. It's a fairly new request that the MTA gave to us. So yeah, we do have to do feasibility studies in order to determine if the requests are valid. There's no new update on that as of now. But yeah, there is still more work to be done, at least as from a technical standpoint, as far as what the MTA's official request is. But yeah, the school, bottom line, like I said, I don't want to throw them under the bus, but they need to be better neighbors. And yeah, we just have to all work together in order to see if the school will change. They have to really change their patterns as far as, parents coming in and out. You mentioned staggering the pickup and drop off times. We've had that conversation on site too. Zeta will do what it is they want to do, it seems, even, despite the many, many conversations and site visits that we've had, but, we'll still keep going. But we can definitely, use support from the CB, in order to have, either a further conversation with the school to let them know that, there are issues and concerns that, they're not just hearing from us, MTA, and, the council member's office, but, we can definitely talk offline if there are other strategies that we can use. We're definitely all for it. We're also, like I said, we've reached out to the precinct, the 34th, in order, we've had conversations with them on site too. Just stressing the need for more enforcement in this area. I know they've been there a couple of times. It seems that it needs to be more consistent in order for it to make a true impact. But like I said, Bruce, it's not for lack of trying. But like I said, we'll keep doing what we need to do, hopefully in order to make sure that the school at least upholds their end of the bargain.
Yeah, we'll follow up as well, Bruce. Well, I will email the school as well. I've been in communication. Lal, if you can do the same on your end, and then Jamila from the council. I know that you guys, she reached out to you right after our meeting, so.
Thank you.
I'm
Oh,
sure
that's good to know. I didn't hear about that, but we can definitely have a further conversation about that.
Conversation. But you guys connect online. In essence of time, and OC, I'll give you 1 minute. But in essence of time, if you guys have a complaint for DOT, you can reach out to me or Carmen. We'll forward it to Lyle. Or you can call 311, file a ticket, and DOT will get it. Honestly.
Yeah, anything that goes through 311, anything that goes through our website, like I said, those all get generated into cases for us that go to the respective divisions within DOT, and you'll get your response. It might not be right away, but you get your response. And if you don't, you can always reach out to me or to DOT, and we'll see what we can find out for you in the meantime.
Once you call 311, then reach out to me, and I'll make sure to bug.
Leo knows where to find me. So
yeah, I'm always emailing. All right, OC, and then we'll move on. We have.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Leo, it's a question to you and the committee. I think it's time to bring residential parking only to the front and start having a conversation and resolution and hopefully an implementation of that. With the congestion pricing and everyone, there's a lot of competition over parking and all of that, and more people are coming just to park here and go downtown. So residential parking only will be something to consider, I think, and I just want to put it in the front, of front of the committee's agenda at some point, sometime this year. Start having a conversation and to hopefully have a positive resolution to implement something like that.
Thank you, OC. Yeah, we've had conversations in the past. I know that right now it was proposed at the state level, and Councilmember De La Rosa a little while ago, also proposed a bill at the city council level. So we're gonna have a conversation once we get kind of more clarity, and Lyle will be a part of the conversation, obviously, for DOT regulation. But yeah, we'll be having those conversations in the next few months. I want to give a special shout out and thank you to Fred. Fred has done his homework. I get so many emails from him with details, and he's on top of his game. So he's helping me navigate through it quite well. So Fred, thank you for that. I really appreciate all the information. But yeah, so we'll be discussing in the near future, very near future. All right, Lyle, thank you again. So it's my pleasure. We'll next line, I have to follow up with you on a couple other things that I received emails in the last couple of days, but we'll discuss. And if you can do a little bit of homework on the universal daylighting, Peter has brought it up, and I think it's something to consider in our area, at least certain intersection corridors that need it. So
Sure. Like I said, just send me an email. Like I said, just add it to the list of stuff that you want to discuss or follow up on. And like I said, we can either have a conversation offline or so I can find out. We're just send an email and I got you.
Thank you, I appreciate you.
No problem.
All right, we'll move on. Do we have Janet from NYC EVSA? Janet, I communicated with her recently. She's had a series of unfortunate events as of late. So I know that she's going through a lot with her family. She was supposed to present a couple months ago, last month, this month. I'm not sure if she's on.
But Judy is on from last.
Yeah,
I'm not sure. that she's-
Judy, I'm not allowed to talk. Judy, hi, Judy. I know that you weren't representing NYC VSA, but you gave an overview. Have you spoken to Janet recently? Should we be expecting tonight? She was supposed to present. We connected a couple of weeks ago. Not sure what's going on. If you can give updates, if not, we'll keep moving her as we go on for agenda and just move on the agenda. Judy? Okay. So I guess in the essence of time, Janet or Judy are present. So Allegra, you got 10 minutes. The floor is yours.
Actually, who last month was talking about a cello player paralyzed by an e-bike?
Judy Polson, I believe it was.
Can I have your email?
I can request. She hasn't responded, but I can ask.
I can find it from last meeting.
The nice windows machine.
You want me to?
What did you say, Brenda?
I'm in a vice chair. IT. She got everything. There's everything.
I may have her email from last, so just give me a second.
Let me see if I can ask. I can also provide you Janet's email address. She's, I guess, the representative for our area. Not sure about that. I don't keep tabs on people.
Most people are gonna have a lot, she's not supposed to, we have 10 minutes allowed.
She was, but she's been having a lot of personal issues. So we have to respect that. Sometimes you can't make it, and it's okay. It's okay.
So there was her, and then the other lady was named what?
Judy Polson.
Judy Polson, right?
She's on, but she might have stepped away.
Judy, or
she's the one that mentioned the cello player.
yeah, but
I'm waiting to see if she responds.
So you're gonna have to open that. Thank you. Docs probably.
So this is the one. I'm gonna put their website.
That's a PowerPoint file, right? So if we just open up the browser.
Email address.
Thank you.
One second, we're connecting a presentation. And after that, hopefully we can get along.
Doing a good job.
Been up since 4:30 this morning. Yeah, I don't want to talk too much. It's a conversation between us. In regards to the school, I sent them a picture you sent me with the fake placards. So they said that they would address it we're gonna have to drive by and check. I doubt they'll address it, but I'm also been in conversation with the 34th precinct. I want to get them involved in that. They have other things to deal with. That's the pushback I get all the time. It's understandable. Yes.
Can I borrow the charger for that?
Yes.
You're doing like 3. And they weren't.
Well, they probably were, but they're not supposed to do that.
It's still the library, it's fine, she got through having about that. That's fine.
We're gonna keep it short and brief. It's an ongoing conversation. It's 9 o'clock. I've been up since 4:30 this morning. Yeah, I'm running on E right now. I still haven't had dinner. So it's a long day. It's a long day.
Generally, people drivers.
I feel like I have to figure out how to limit these meetings. These are the longest meetings
Well,
by far. Right?
But almost too many questions.
It's a lot. It's a lot
Lot of
of.
discussion about the plaza.
full time, I mean, when you're working full time, if you're gonna have.
I'm dying.
But you know what she said about transparency.
Can't hear anything.
Sorry, Jim, just muted us as someone is working with Allegra to bring up the presentation. I apologize about the brief intermission. Dr. Allegra Legrand will present on the New York City open data analysis reveals cars and trucks are principal danger in our area. There you go.
Thank you all so very much, friends, for staying with me late tonight. How you can reach out to me. I live in Inwood. I'm also like a nerdy person who loves New York City open data. And I like to tailor New York City open data to my community and see what it means in my community, because often when you see them talk about Manhattan, just for facilitation purposes, they almost always cut off Community Board 12, and I feel slighted. So this is my project to figure out what's really going on uptown. So here we go. New York City Vision Zero is now 10 years old. And so hypothetically, that should mean that we have driven our crashes down to zero. Unfortunately, things have not worked out quite so well in New York. We were doing pretty well in the first part of Vision Zero, and then came COVID. People changed how they got around, and we spiked back up again. So what's going on, and can we dive a little bit deeper into what this means for Uptown? So I can find this slideshow later with all the links and all the good stuff. Okay, so in spite of those problems, DOT did manage to claw back some pedestrian spaces for us from spaces that have been previously inhabited by cars. And you're also going to hear me talk about how the improvements that we've had in lower numbers of pedestrian fatalities and in motorist fatalities have been in large part to these calming street design. She told me she was going to time me, so that's why I'm not dwelling. All right.
Yeah, no worries. It's that's the time. Go ahead.
So what does this mean for Upper Manhattan? All right. So here is us up here in Community Board 12. Oops. The uppermost neighborhood with just under 250,000 souls spread out over about 83,000 households. So probably everyone knows the left two maps, but the one on the right here, you may not have seen like where our densest populations live. So I know the color bar is hard to read, but this is like people per square mile, and it goes from 0 at white, and like the most saturated blue is something over 3,000. So for the most part, we're at as Manhattan goes, a lower density, but as the state of New York goes, a higher density neighborhood. So how do people get around Uptown? So I pulled this from the census. They have these really nice, easy to digest community surveys. This link I have here is for where I live in 134. But you can tailor this to whatever zip code you live in. Just swap out the 134s for whatever your zip code is. So Uptown, people generally get around by mass transit, or they walk, some drive, and very few drive alone. And we actually don't have that many people who cycle yet. So if you think about when people get around, more people in Washington Heights and Inwood walk and bike than drive to work. So when we're talking about how we spend our community time and our concerns, like there needs to be parity in the discussions between people's concerns on walking and biking and people who are driving. Most people, of course, take our wonderful mass transit system, which is awesome to us Uptown. And yes, so this is our mass transit networks. We have like subway lines, we have express bus lines. I know there's lots of other buses, but I only have so much space. And then on the right, this is the bicycle network for New York City. I have a lot of different colored lines there, but the only ones that are real bike networks lines are the green ones. Everything else is magical thinking with paint. And something that you'll notice is that Manhattan has a lot of bike lanes, a lot. But when you get north of Central Park, not so much. And I would have supposed that Community Board 9 had the least number of bike lanes, but I know for a fact that it is Community Board 9 where my friend Felipe is here tonight, and also it's where the community board where I work has the least, but it's, you know, it's a race to the bottom. Okay. So how do we make our streets safe? And the thing I want to press upon you tonight, whether or not you like to bike, whether or not you bike yourself, whether or not you believe in biking, the infrastructure related to providing safe biking ends up making everyone safe. And it's safety not having to do directly with the number of people using the bike lanes. It is the bike lanes themselves that are creating a safer landscape for everyone, for pedestrians and also for motorists. Okay, why is that? It's not rocket science. It's very simple. Okay, I know I'm not supposed to say Newtonian science because anyway, but it is because cars are massive and they go fast. And so what this big chart here in the middle is, it's on the y-axis, it says risk of pedestrian fatality. And on the x-axis, it is the impact speed. And I have color-coded this. Bikes, traditional bikes and pedestrians, these are the blue zone. E-bikes are the yellow zone. And the red zone is cars. So this line that's underneath, like maybe it's easiest to see it with cars because the risk of fatality really for people who are walking and people who are on traditional bikes is exceptionally low. And it's also exceptionally low all the way until you get to about 25 miles per hour. Now, it just so happens that this is a really important number for e-bikes because that is what makes it the e-bike is it doesn't go faster than 25 miles an hour. So things that get all vehicles in this less than 25-mile-an-hour zone, and we're not talking about putting up signage, we're talking about making a street so that you really can't travel faster than 25 miles per hour. And that's, you know, through elements of street design, which really, you could have enforcement like speed cameras or whatnot, but really it's the street design that is going to get us like 80% of the way there, maybe more. Okay. So when we're talking about changes to street design that make it safe, just to be clear, I don't mean paint, I don't mean flexible bollards. What I mean is like physical barriers that if a car hit, it would be deflected from. So it's as something that a car is going to try really hard not to interact with. And this is a super nerdy way to say that these researchers, they went and actually had a look at various road treatments to see which ones actually had the biggest increases in safety. And it is the segregated lanes that are hardened. So all the other design elements that we're talking about, whether it's a painted full-on lane, whether it's a shared paint lane, those particular treatments, we thought they would work 20 years ago, but in the intervening 20 years of data, we have found out the paint does not do much in terms of safety. Because the goal, remember, isn't just to get bicyclists somewhere to go, it's to get everyone to slow down. All right, so what does New York City say? So this is my first chart. This is pulled directly from the data that's freely available to everyone from the New York City Open Data Portal. And here I have fatalities on the y-axis, and on the x-axis, I have data since 2012 when they started keeping track or producing it in this particular format. The darkest color are pedestrian fatalities. The medium color gray is cyclist fatalities, and the lightest gray are motor vehicle, like car fatalities. Okay, so if you were to look up at this chart and I were to cut it off when COVID hit, you would think that Vision Zero had been effective. But unfortunately, we did not maintain that trend for overall fatalities. Now, if you look at the number of pedestrian fatalities, it does look like there's a trend towards, in general, decreasing numbers of fatalities. For bike users, however, there is not a trend. There are just as many fatalities as there ever were, but it's highly variable year to year. So we need to figure out, like, why aren't traffic fatalities, why are they increasing again? And like, why are there some improvements to pedestrian fatalities? Okay, So these are just some details about the plaza pooling. This is what the homepage for New York City Open Data looks like. You don't have to know what you're doing. You can just go there and ask it, like type of regular language, like what you're looking for, and it will help you pull the data out directly. And there are some simple plotting tools. As a community board, you can reach out to organizations like Beta NYC, who will actually help you do the visualizations that you need to make the best decisions and to know more about what's going on in the community. So it's just a fabulous, fabulous resource. And of course, for a lot of the traffic crashes we're talking about tonight, there is a great online tool called Crash Mapper, which is just a super duper GUI. Okay. A GUI is graphical user interface. That means you point and click and it does the work for you. Okay. So I showed you before New York City traffic violence as a whole. Now I am showing you fatalities as a whole. Now I'm showing you injuries in Community Board 12. Why didn't I show you deaths in Community Board 12? Like, thankfully, we don't have deaths every year. And the graph, you can't tell much because it's very intermittent, the number of deaths that we get. So injuries is a better number to look at for our community. So I have three colored lines here. The black is the total injuries, blue is the pedestrian injuries, and red is the number of bike injuries. And so what you can see is that in the first part of Vision Zero, it was great. All the injuries were going down. And then when COVID hit, actually, our pedestrian injuries have been creeping up again. Bike injuries have remained unchanged. And motor vehicle injuries have actually gone and increased again. So something that was happening to help the rest of New York City has not been happening in our neighborhood. So this is just a quick plot of what it looks like were you to go online right now and to look up New York City Crash Mapper. You can filter by community board, you can like draw shapes and filter that way. So these are just the deaths that happened last year in our community and where they happened. Sorry, I didn't actually filter by community board and got some of the Bronx here, but okay. So that's the direct bloody death that's caused by cars and trucks and our injuries in our community. But shockingly, the number of injuries and deaths caused by our poor air quality, something like an order of 10 greater than that. So if you look at the deleterious effects of bad air, we're talking about ozone, NOx, other particulate matter in the community that can be attributed to bad air quality related to like diesel engines, car engines, combustion engines in general. It's 10 times the number of deaths related to direct bloody contact. And there's some details. So New York City is not building the bike lanes that City Council told it to build. And so this tool is a project to just keep up with. There are required numbers of bike lanes to be built in New York City every year. And New York City, for the last couple, 3 years, has not met that requirement. And so that's this chart here on the right. And in particular, it's not meeting that requirement in communities like ours. So here's a bigger flow up of what infrastructure exists in our neighborhood. I would say the bike infrastructure that exists in Community Board 12, it's neglected, the fabulous infrastructure on the waterfront. Beautiful, beautiful new bridges, Washington Bridge, George Washington Bridge, Henry Hudson Parkway Bridge, but pretty much poor everywhere else in our community. Okay, I'm gonna switch because I want to talk about
Yeah, like we're giving you a minute. I'm sorry.
Okay.
You're going on 15 minutes now. We just one of those
the
agenda.
truth. I didn't know it was only 10 until more recently.
Yeah, we usually allow DOT and the agencies to have a lengthy presentations and public members A little less, but,
Okay,
but.
I would like to put some perspective on the traffic violence in our community. These are time series plots. Each color is a different box. So black is all in New York City, Manhattan's red, and our community board is the darker blue. And this, I'm comparing the number of injuries from traffic, from cars and trucks, to the number of injuries and fatalities we have in both categories, to the number of shootings problems we have here. And although guns are more effective at killing people, the amount of violence that happens in this community by cars and trucks is so much greater. It's greater by an order of magnitude. That means times 10. And is it the scooters and the e-bikes that are causing these injuries? I showed this plot last time, but now that it's in the proper place in my presentation, I would like to reiterate that almost all the injuries in our community are caused by cars and trucks. They are caused by cars and trucks because those are the vehicles that can maintain and attain the speed required to actually hurt people badly. And so if I just have like any time left, I would like to say like how other things could be better. Personally, I think that a lot of people's upset about e-bikes is that they're startling because they're very quiet and they're very fast. So one of the things that as I was looking more closely into this, I realized is that the reasons we don't get startled by cars that have become electric anymore is they were required by law to each one determine their own little symphony that they would play when they're traveling under 18 miles per hour. And that way pedestrians and cyclists would have another sense, their ears, that would notify them of the cars that are close. And if we're going to think about any kind of e-bike regulation that could be meaningful in decreasing conflicts between pedestrians and e-bikes, I think actually the sounds are a great idea. The other point is, of course, that delivery drivers, they don't want to be in harm's way. They're trying to make dollars. And so if we remove the incentives for them to speed, that will happen naturally. And yeah, I had more, but I'll cut to the end because I am also tired. So thank you. In closing, cars and trucks cause violence in Community Board 12. Bike lane infrastructure, not painted lanes, but the infrastructure that's required to make the bike lanes themselves are what will give us fewer incidences of traffic violence. And I think that small changes to our current delivery scheme, including de-incentivizing like speeding, increasing like sounds that e-bikes make so they don't startle people, would help decrease conflicts. And finally, I didn't get into it, but the only enforcement that's super effective is the one that's like super blanket, so cameras. Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you.
Appreciate the presentation.
Yes, I will send you a copy.
Yes, please, you can forward it.
Can I just highlight a couple of quick points? One so protective bike lane is the only way like people can like actually get around. Putting the paint on there just to emphasize, you're just playing Russian roulette with your bike with the doors opening, and then people of course double park. I've been down no bike lane, but I was going around double parked car and a car was literally coming at me, straight at me, BMW coming at me. I'm not even joking, like 75 miles an hour. Like if you know Autobahn, like around like I think like 80-ish. Like 75 miles an hour is insane,
Yeah,
like on that road. And they were beeping at me to get out of the way, and I
35
jumped out.
miles
I almost died. I'm not even exaggerating. Like even like the delivery driver was like right next to me on a bike was like, "What just happened?" We really need a protected bike lane that goes up and down in the middle. Like we have Hudson Greenway, but it's like not really realistic, especially if you're not on the bike because you have to go like all the way down there and then go all the way up. Like that kind of defeats the whole purpose is we want to have like quick ways to get around that's quicker than a car. So, I mean, if you look at Google Maps, so like any of your favorite places, like around the neighborhood, it usually bikes are like the fastest way. We really need like an up and down because the cross streets are honestly fine-ish. That's another thing to tackle, but the majority is we need a minimum viable network that just goes up and down the avenues, at least one, and then we'll see a big spurt so that people can manage like the cross streets.
It's not bad.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jim.
I want to really, really thank Allegra for her presentation. I think two things. Number one, we need more presentations like that because I think she demonstrated that I don't know what to call it, the scientific numerical approach, looking at graphs. And I think graphs are the best way of looking at things because you can see things that are big and you can see things that are small. And so her final graph, and this is key, however horrible these annoying bicycles are, it's the cars that are really dangerous. And her other point, which I'll reinforce, and again, I'm so thankful for her having done this and its quality, is that the only way you're going to get control of the cars, as she mentioned, is actually put really hard things like rocks and bollards made of concrete, and then the cars won't want to hit them because people are squishy, doesn't mess up the car as much. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Yeah, I think it's an ongoing conversation. I do agree. And as the charts show, the cars are the bigger issue. I didn't know about that. I didn't know. I've never heard of electric bike with the noise. I've never heard of it.
Now, like,
I'm gonna pay attention to all the time,
because
right?
of my kids. I think I could identify manufacturer now by the little hums they make.
Wow, I didn't know that.
I hear it come about that the kids pick up.
Yeah, I didn't know that. That's actually very interesting.
Also, another thing I want to add is like, even in the perspective of drivers, it's absurd that as a driver, you have to like deal with somebody that, I respect the driver, dealing with somebody. With the bikes leaving out and like having to make sure you're not gonna kill somebody. Like, the biker doesn't want that, and I know, like, I never drive around here, but I know from the perspective of a driver, I can understand that you don't want that either. We need to have completely separate things, and the way that happens is a protected bike lane. We just have to have a completely dedicated space. You guys have a space, we have a space.
And there might be something for the committee. Obviously, Lyle will connect offline, but to discuss maybe proposing a resolution to have protected bike lane going down an avenue, whether it's St. Nicholas or Broadway or Fort Washington, which I think would be the more plausible. But it's something for us to discuss. I don't think that's a bad
We need
idea.
a street level bike
Yeah.
lane to our community so bad.
Yeah, there's just one route, and then if you have to go to the cross streets, you just make a turn and navigate to there. At least one route going
Up and
the
down.
southern end to the northern and vice versa, up and down.
Because
Yeah,
once
it makes
that
it
bike right
easier.
there, like, have a completely protected bike lane, right? First of all, people park it, but second of all, it's useless. Like, it gets people from like one area.
It's
that-
from one side to the other, yeah.
You have to look at the whole, like, majority of people. What's gonna get the best bang for your buck? Putting that there is gonna upset the most amount of people and get the least amount of use. We really need because the up and down is where it's the main artery. It's the lifeblood of our community.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think that's something actually we should discuss.
So like, sorry.
Go ahead.
My name is Peter Reeves. I live in Inwood, right off Academy and Seaman. So if you guys are not familiar with that area, there's a painted bike lane on Seaman on both sides. And it is never, ever used because it is just plagued with double parking. Delivery trucks, I know we've talked about the loading zones or whatever, but also just people loading and unloading, whatever they're doing. So opponents of this will come and say, look, we painted a bike lane, no one uses it. It's unusable. Like, I can't get from 218th to where I live because it's dangerous. So I end up biking right in the middle of the street when I have to go up and down because anywhere else I'm risking my life of getting doored or there's just someone right in front of me in the bike lane. So I don't know whose decision, that was way before I was coming to these meetings, but like, I don't know what DOT was thinking, putting 2 bike lanes next to the parked cars. Like, it just makes no sense.
Yeah.
So, yeah. It's Seaman from Dykeman all the way to 218 to 218.
That's exactly what I love. Yes, Fred, and then we'll move on with the agenda.
I just want to say one more thing about Seaman Avenue, because I was driving on it last week and I realized that it is really wide.
It's very wide.
So it could support protected bike lane in each direction. And apropos to driving in the middle of the road, which I saw somebody doing, I'm like, that actually is the smartest thing in the world. But in Paris, all the bike lanes are down the center of the street. And so it would probably actually take less space.
Yeah.
So you could drop 2 bike lanes right down the middle. It's the safest of all, protected by curbs. Fun deal.
Yeah, last comment.
Yeah, I had a question, like how drastic of a change would it be to have it one way, like Amsterdam or something like that, where, because then it would only take away one side of parking.
It's
That's what's like 110.
the parking is probably the minimal of it. It's money funding is probably the biggest thing out of everything.
That's the biggest issue.
Yeah, and then you have regulations, and then on top of that, this agency owns this part, and this part is owned by this agency, so there's a collaboration and there's a lot that goes, a lot of moving pieces. Not as easy as it sounds. Now, on our end, we can propose something to DOT and have them come up with a study to take a look at it, and that's how we would start. That's probably the best way to go about it. Say, hey, listen, this is our idea. What do you guys think? You guys do a study on this. Is it plausible? Is it feasible? They say yeah, or they'll take a look and then they'll come back with their findings and we can figure out conversations. And I think it's something to bring up in the very near, I mean, we have a pretty busy agenda in the next couple of months, but very near future, we should propose it. I don't think it's a bad idea to bring it up, especially most of our meetings have bike advocates.
Oh, bike.
Yeah, so it's, we don't see a lot of people coming here advocating for cars. Clearly, we have to. Yeah, I think we should have that conversation.
Yeah.
And I will speak with Lyle offline to see if it's something that they considered, and if so, why hasn't it been implemented? But Brad, can we have a conversation offline?
And I just want to say 10 seconds on the record that I have prepared a resident-only permit parking, and if the committee invites me, I will be happy to present.
Yes, we can set it up. Most likely next month, yeah. I know April or May. One of the months we're gonna have a forum and we'll discuss soon. But yeah, most likely next month. We'll connect offline.
Better.
Yeah. We'll connect offline. Do we have a motion? I know we have another
Second.
one. All right. Thank you guys. I appreciate it.